I opened my laptop at 3:17 in the morning inside a pinewood cabin thrown together in the middle of a snow-covered forest in Tromsø. The old fireplace hissed in thin bursts of smoke. A yellow lamp hung from the beam overhead, flickering each time the wind pressed through the window pane. I had not slept. Every gust against the tin roof sounded like bullets driving straight into memory. The screen lit up its cold light, cutting into eyes that had been awake too many nights. At the top sat the email subject line, as cold as the frost seeping into the joints of my fingers. Be a little more mature about this. I clicked on the email without hurry, without blinking, just resting my hand on the mouse and waiting for it to load. 3 lines. No more. No need. I have filed for divorce. You will receive the papers soon. I have withdrawn all the money from our joint account to get my life in order. I have moved out of the house, moved Darren in. Darren. The name sat quietly at the end of the line, like a silenced shot. No blood, no warning bell, but enough to break everything in my chest without a sound anyone could hear. I closed the laptop and sat still. No sigh, no asking why. Just sat there between the hiss of the wind and the thin warmth from a teapot gone empty. My name is Logan Maddox, 46 years old. Once a tactical specialist in the United States Air Force, then a life lived in the shadows of covert operations in the Middle East. Now a tactical training advisor for a United Nations peacekeeping program. This assignment was 6 months long, from Colorado across the Atlantic, then up to northern Norway. Tromsø, where daylight lasts barely more than 3 hours and night falls like a long, bottomless slide. I had been here for 5 weeks, training local forces in survival under extreme conditions. A job no one notices, no one celebrates, but one that still needs doing. Emily had not asked much when I left. No goodbye at the airport, no embrace, just one text. Remember to lock the basement door. I thought it was the habit of someone long used to separations, like many military couples whose affection is arranged around deployment schedules and rotations. I thought so. 2 weeks ago, I began to sense something wrong when I could not access our bank account. I texted Emily. No reply. When there was, it was only, I am sleeping, I am in a meeting at school, or nothing at all. I did not call back, did not press, but I had already begun backing up everything I could from the security system I had installed in our home, a private local network, no cloud connection, impossible to tamper with remotely. Only my foster mother and I knew the password. And now seeing the line I have moved Darren in, I knew exactly why she had once asked how to disable the living room camera. I stood up, pulled a pack of cigarettes from my coat, lit one. The smell of Marlboro and the cold wind reminded me of night patrols in Afghanistan. Their betrayal often came with a handshake, not an email. But the feeling was the same, cold, tight, and empty. I looked through the window. Snow was falling heavy. Down the slope, the bare pines stood like old sentries who had seen too many winters to need explanations. I opened the laptop again and typed the only reply. Noted, no anger, no pleading, no debate. I hit send, then shut it down. Closed everything, the story, the trust, the woman I once thought would walk with me through every turn of the road. The cold teacup beside me cracked a thin line. And somewhere half a world away, silence began turning into a strategy. If you have ever had a moment like that, just a single message, a single look, or a door closing behind you without explanation, tell me where you are listening from, so I know I am not telling this story alone. And if you want to stay with me through more journeys like this, hit follow. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the strongest statement you can make. I began to retrace every detail the way a scout follows tracks through deep snow, not to look for explanations, but to measure just how deep the betrayal went and who had known all along. 1 month before I left Colorado, Emily changed the password to our joint bank account. She said the bank had updated its security and I would receive a link to create a new password. That link never arrived. I did not ask again because I trusted her. A few days later, she began leaving the house at night more often, some nights claiming she had to meet students for private lessons. Other nights saying she was with colleagues from the art school preparing for an exhibition. I did not question it. A part-time art teacher's work could involve activities I did not fully understand. I simply wished her a good evening and cleaned up the kitchen. The last time we FaceTimed was 3 weeks before that email. The picture was blurry, the light was poor. She spoke in short clipped sentences, then hurried off. I asked if she was all right. She said, just tired. Just tired. I did not know tired meant she might be preparing to sign a mortgage on the house in my name or practicing how to lie without blinking. 1 month before my flight, while I was making coffee, she asked a question that at first sounded harmless. Are you sure this house is still in your name? I looked at her, thinking she was joking. But when I saw her eyes did not blink, I paused. Why do you ask? Just in case something happened while you were away, I would not know how to handle it. I remember clearly that I did not answer right away. I only nodded and poured the coffee. But that night I opened my property records and quietly transferred co-ownership to my foster mother, Maureen Maddox, a woman who had worked as a legal secretary for 30 years before retiring. I never told Emily, and because of that, what happened next became even clearer. I logged back into the internal camera system. The server was in the basement. No cloud connection. Only I knew the password, and one copy was stored on an external drive hidden in my late father's old toolbox. I opened the log files. The data was intact. No one had touched it. In the 5 weeks after I left, Darren, an old friend, appeared 17 times. The first was on a rainy afternoon. He walked in through the front door. Emily was waiting inside. The 6th time he opened the refrigerator. The 12th he stepped out of the bedroom in the early morning wearing one of my t-shirts. The last time he and Emily stood in the kitchen laughing, kissing, then threw our wedding photo into the trash. The kitchen camera caught every movement in slow detail. No fast forward, no cuts, no guesses. I did not turn off the video, did not switch to another feed. I simply noted the date and time, saved the files in sequence from EMDR01 to EMDR17. Then I plugged the drive into my private computer, encrypted everything, and sent it to my attorney in Denver. The message I sent was only 4 words. Prepare the file. 2 days later, I received a preliminary legal report. Emily had filed for a bank loan 3 weeks before I left. The house was listed as marital property, though I had never signed any related documents. The partner bank confirmed the application was signed electronically. I sent my notarized signature for comparison. My lawyer filed a request to verify the electronic signature's data trace. Darren worked in IT. He knew how to spoof IPs, forge signatures, even blur timestamps. But there was one thing he did not know. I had served in a technical intelligence analysis unit. I had once traced forged signatures in an international case when he was still installing pirated Windows copies. I knew how to prove what was real and what was fake, and I did not need to speak. I only needed proof. In the 15th video, I heard Emily tell Darren while pouring wine, "You believe Logan will never find out. He is too busy with those cold soldiers in Norway. He does not care about this." Darren laughed. "Then just let me handle the paperwork. This house will be ours. They only check the name on the form. No one checks who actually signed it." The camera caught it all. Voices lighting, file name stamped in UTC time. Untouchable. I shut down the laptop, took the metal pen engraved with my name and Emily's from the desk drawer. The pen I had custom ordered from a small craft shop in Estes Park the year we married. I set it on the table and looked at it for a long moment, not out of longing, but to be certain I would never hold it to write her name again. I called my foster mother the next morning. "Maureen, I need you to review the co-ownership transfer file from last month. Do you still have the copy?" "I do," she said in her calm way. "Are you ready to act?" "Not yet, but I see it clearly now, down to every detail." "Then let everything run on the data. Truth does not need to shout." "I understand." That afternoon, as the wind rattled the cabin walls, I began labeling each file on the drive. Each clip given a name marked with a timestamp, locked away. I did not watch them twice. I did not need to. The truth was clear enough to be a weapon, and for the first time in years I felt no tension, no regret. Only the certainty that the person who had once lain beside me each night had planned it all with precision, coldness, and patience. But she never expected I had recorded everything. I landed at Denver International Airport on a cold February morning. White clouds draped across the Rockies like a slow, aching cut. No one was there to pick me up, no one waiting. but I had not told anyone I was coming back. There was no need. The people who are still genuine never require an announcement. I did not return to the house in Boulder. Even though the title still carried my name, even though every item inside, a chambre, the leather chairs, the acoustic guitar, the espresso cups I had bought in Florence, belonged to me, that I had no desire to step into a place already taken over. Instead, I drove a rental car to Aspen, a small gray cabin tucked quietly in the pines, where I had once stayed during training, where my foster mother, Maureen Maddox, had lived in retirement for 10 years. She was the only person I trusted enough to send the first clip to, along with instructions not to share it with anyone else. When I arrived, she was standing on the porch, holding a silver teapot with an old wool shawl draped loosely over her shoulders. Her eyes squinted against the sun, but her mouth did not smile. "You are back," was all she said. I nodded, then stepped inside, leaving my snow-covered boots at the door out of habit. The next morning, I received an official document from the Boulder County Court, a petition for division of marital assets filed by Emily Maddox. She had listed all marital property, demanded an even split, and included an accusation that Logan Maddox had neglected his duties as a husband, absent without reason during a period of emotional distress for his wife. I read it once. No anger. I simply folded it, set it on the table, and turned to Maureen. "I think it is time to clear everything out," I said. She asked nothing further. Silently, she pulled open a drawer, took out 2 thick files, a red pen, and switched on the desk lamp. "We start with the bank accounts," she said. Maureen had spent 30 years as a legal secretary for an estate and finance law office. She never spoke more than necessary, never guessed at facts. She trusted the words on paper, the ink stamps on documents, and logic. We sat across from each other for nearly 6 hours. Every transaction was pulled, every email printed into hard copy, every camera log labeled, encrypted, and stored in triplicate. She reopened the file for the co-ownership transfer I had made a month before leaving. The original was still there, bearing the notary stamp, the date and time, and confirmation from the Boulder County Property Office. This means that when she took out the mortgage loan on this house, it was no longer solely her property, Maureen said evenly. "The signature on the loan application is a forgery. We have 2 layers of proof." I nodded. Quietly, I opened the hard drive and retrieved the EMDR security folder, which held the recording from the day Emily signed the loan, along with a clip of her and Darren discussing how to bypass the property attorney. In the clip, Emily said, "If something goes wrong, I will just say Logan does not care. Who can prove an electronic signature anyway?" Darren replied, "Relax, I already changed the timestamps. No one will ever trace it." "But they forgot," I said, eyes still on the screen. "A signature is not just ink on paper. It is a string of personal identifiers, and the device data that sent it." Maureen smiled faintly, as if I had answered a test correctly. "We will request a sample signature comparison and petition the court to freeze the assets," she said. "But we stay silent. Do not let her know." "I am not ready to file yet," I said. "Why not?" "Because there is more to pull out." I began compiling data from 2 years back. Recordings of calls Emily made to real estate agents I had never known about. Transactions she sent to Darren under the shell company name ED Solutions, short for Emily and Darren. I combed through old message logs, the time she said she was at an art camp, but GPS showed her in another suburb. I pulled from an iCloud backup she had forgotten to remove sharing access from. Every message, photo, and calendar entry laid out clearly. In one clip, Emily wore my white robe and spoke on the phone. "We have to close before January, before he comes back." He was me. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in Maureen's warm attic room, scented with herbal tea and cedarwood. On the desk was the old engraved pen, beside a USB holding a copy of the ME Core Lies folder. I wrote a short line in a black leather notebook. "No need for revenge, only the right moment to expose." I paused, then added, "Silence. Strategy, truth." The next morning, I sent my lawyer an email. Subject, Phase 1, body. "We start when I say go." No need to reply. Wait for the signal. Then I closed the laptop, poured a cup of black coffee, stepped onto the porch, and looked toward the frozen pines. None of them, Emily, Darren, or anyone who had laughed behind my back knew I was ready, and I would not have to say a single word to make them fall. Clip 18, timestamp 17:44:12, January 15th. Emily stood in the kitchen, a glass of red wine in her hand, sunlight cutting through the window and laying a stripe of light across the oak dining table. Darren sat opposite her, his feet propped on a chair that used to be mine. She laughed. You know, I drained the account in exactly 3 minutes. He did not even know how much was in there. Better than a magic trick. Darren laughed louder, leaning toward her with contempt in his voice. If Logan knew how to use a computer, he would not be sitting for months in that frozen wasteland. He lives in the last century. Emily tilted her head, her eyes glinting with triumph. He will never suspect anything. He still thinks I am the sweet wife running an art class for high school kids. Too simple. Darren poured more wine. Emily glanced at the wall camera, unaware that I had replaced the lens last year with a model that had no indicator. Light, no sound, no network connection. It only recorded and sent everything to a hard drive buried beneath the basement floorboards. I plugged that drive into my laptop in Maureen's study. Each video was renamed, time-stamped, and converted into a format that could not be altered. Beneath each clip, I added notes, voice analysis, behavioral cues, and extracted the key audio segments. My hands did not shake. My breathing did not change. Every motion was as precise as stripping an M4A1 under night rain. The next afternoon, I brought a copy of the videos to Boulder Credit Union. A closed conference room, white light overhead, 2 legal officers and a representative from the credit department across from me. I did not waste words. I slid a stamped file across the table, along with a 2-minute clip in which Emily said clearly, "The loan papers are signed. Logan has no idea. The house has enough value to use as collateral. I am on the title, but the system will attach your name to make it look safe." I had nothing more to add. The bank manager cleared his throat, then said, "We will need to verify the authenticity of the recordings. But from a procedural standpoint, if what you are saying is accurate, this loan violates owner verification requirements. The signature must be confirmed through a personal authentication code, and this clearly shows elements of forgery." I produced another document, a side-by-side of 3 signatures. One was my notarized sample from last year, one was the signature on Emily's loan application, and one was my verified digital signature from my own device, complete with device ID confirmation. This is not my handwriting, and that electronic signature came from an IP address that does not match any device I have ever used. In fact, that IP matches the location of Darren Matthews' freelance IT office in Aurora. No one said anything else. I spoke only one line. "The rest, my attorney will handle with your legal department." Then I stood, taking the hard drive with me. That night, I opened clip 22. Emily appeared in my office, rifling through the file cabinet. She pushed her hair back, then reached into the small compartment where I kept what mattered: old military ID cards, a letter my father had written in 1979, and the engraved pen that read Logan and Emily, Estes Park, 2009. She took the pen out, twirled it once, smiled faintly, and without a word dropped it into the metal trash can beside her, without the slightest hesitation. I watched that scene 3 times, without pausing, without skipping. The next morning I drove to Boulder. No warning, no call, just a heavy coat, dark glasses, and a direct walk into the house. Still legally mine, never lawfully transferred. Emily was not there. The door was unlocked. I walked straight to my old office, to the corner where the metal trash can stood. It was still there, untouched. I reached in and quietly took the pen back. The scratch along the metal body was still there, the one I made when I dropped it on a rock during our first mountain climb together. I slipped it into my pocket. No words, no glance toward the bedroom, no thought about whether she might walk in. I walked out, shut the door gently, and drove back to Aspen. In the cabin, I sat at the oak desk and set the hard drive on its worn surface. I opened a new folder, named it ME, Core Lies. ME equals Emily Maddox and Darren Matthews. Inside it, 7 extracted video clips, 3 signature comparison reports, 1 scanned copy of the forged loan document, 1 ownership confirmation letter from December, One special clip, Emily rummaging through my files and throwing the pen away. One photograph of the pen in my hand, taken that same day. I encrypted the folder and made 2 copies. One I stored on an SSD locked in the cabin safe. The other I sent to my attorney. Subject line: no anger, no noise, just the truth. After sending, I stepped out onto the porch. The winter sun leaned across the pines, pale gold and silent. No phone ringing, no shouting from the past. Only a man, once a soldier, once a husband, once underestimated, standing still with an old pen in his pocket. This time he would not have to write a word. The truth had already spoken. That morning, I stepped into attorney Karen Eaves's office in Denver. The air was cold and dry, the white office lights sharp like the ones used for night drills in the barracks. Karen set a folder down in front of me. "We have enough," she said. "Are you ready?" I nodded. Nothing more. The first file, a request to open a forgery investigation submitted to the Colorado Office of Financial Fraud. The second, a petition to suspend the division of assets with full evidence of misconduct during the handling of the mortgage paperwork. Both were stamped, signed, and filed before 10 a.m. Only an hour later, the court sent confirmation. The asset division between Logan Maddox and Emily Maddox was suspended until the verification of all financial records and loan contracts was complete. Karen looked up at me. "We do not need to say anything more to them," she said. "Let the system do its work." I gave a thin smile. That is what I learned in the military. Observe, feed the data, do not fire until you know there will be no need for a second shot. That afternoon, Emily texted, not from her lawyer, but from her personal number, after more than 3 weeks of silence. "Logan, what is going on? The court says the case is paused. The bank is not responding." "What are you doing?" I read that line while standing in the cabin, a window cracked open. The scent of dry pine and the warmth of the stove wrapped together like a heavy blanket over all my old thoughts. I did not answer. I set the phone face down, poured more coffee, and went back to sorting documents. Silence is always the first thing to make the guilty lose patience. Near dusk, Karen called back. "I just got this from a contact in Aurora," she said. She checked the business filings for Darren Matthews. "There is something you need to see." The file she sent was just a photo, but it carried the weight of a bullet. I enlarged it and studied the black ink handwriting at the bottom of a financial ledger page. Funds pulled from Emily's account, $210,000. Moving into 87 Boulder. Paperwork next week. I sat still, reading each word slowly. Funds pulled from Emily's account. Not loan, not shared capital. Pulled. Taken. Stolen from the joint account Emily and I had shared. Money I had built over nearly 20 years. Every dollar from military service, every month's steady contribution, every plan to buy land in Vermont for retirement. And now it was seed money for a company under Darren's name, Helix Digital Solutions, an LLC registered in Aurora just 9 days after I left Colorado. No notice, no consent form. Emily withdrew the money, Darren claimed the name, and the name Logan Maddox was erased. I read the next line, moving into 87 Boulder. My house, not our house, not an asset in dispute. My house, the one I painted the fence around in winter, repaired after the 2016 storm, and planted a maple tree beside after Emily miscarried that same year. Now he was moving in. No change of locks, no change of address, as if I had never existed. Paperwork next week, meaning the rest, the nominal lease, the business registration using my home address, would be finished within 7 days. They thought I would not know. They thought I would not come back. I emailed Karen immediately. Subject, Phase 2, body. They are using my house as corporate property. All capital came from the seized account. We need to file for a freeze on Helix's assets and any property linked to the source account. Karen replied in under 15 minutes. Filing goes in this afternoon. I will work directly with the prosecutor's office. This is clear fraud. That night, I replayed an older clip. Emily sitting on the sofa, drinking red wine, swirling the glass like rehearsing for a mock hearing. She told Darren, "I just need Logan not to come back early. If he extends his contract in Norway, we are fine." Darren laughed. "He lives on military time. Never breaks a schedule." "Trust me," she nodded. "He trusts too much." and loves me too much to doubt. The clip ended there. I did not shut the laptop right away. I let the screen fade, then stood, taking the engraved pen from the drawer. I set it on the desk in the middle of the files marked Emily, Darren, Helix. Each file tagged, labeled, encrypted. I created a new folder. Phase 2, Financial Fraud. Inside, bank statement showing the transfer of $210,000 from Emily's account. Photo of Darren's handwritten internal note. Helix LLC corporate records. Video of their conversation about taking the house and the money. Map of 87 Boulder registered as corporate headquarters. Photo of the discarded pen now back in my possession. I saved it all to a new drive. File name. Key evidence Black March. One copy went into the safe. One would go the next morning to the Colorado State Prosecutor's Office. No arguments, no threats, no, you will regret this. Just the stamps, the signatures, the videos, the money trail, and the truth. Cold, bare, undeniable. I arrived 30 minutes ahead of schedule. As always, no warning, no message to anyone. Karen was already waiting in the hallway. Charcoal suit, hair pulled low, holding a case with the hard drive and printed copies of 2 evidence sets, nearly 300 pages thick. Do not look at anyone. Do not speak unless necessary, she murmured. Let the data speak for you, I nodded. The courtroom doors opened at 10:01. Judge Catherine Lynn stepped in. Small frame, thin glasses, a case file wrapped in a hard cover in her hand. She needed no gavel. Just a glance downward froze the room. Darren was already seated on the left, face flushed. Emily entered behind him, slower, her hand trembling slightly, nails painted brighter than usual, perhaps to mask the worry. I did not look at them. I sat straight, eyes forward, hands resting on my knees. In front of me was the hard drive labeled Core Evidence and a copy of the engraved pen now in my coat pocket. Karen rose first. Your Honor, we request to present a sequence of evidence proving signature forgery, asset misappropriation, and the misuse of marital funds. The judge nodded. Karen connected the drive to the projector. The large screen lit up. The first video appeared. Darren in the living room, opening a file cabinet, pulling out a stack of papers. I signed his name already. Emily's voice came from off camera. The bank has confirmed. Now we just need to bring the loan documents to the notary office. The judge said nothing, just a small nod. The next clip, Darren and Emily in the kitchen. I withdrew the money. $210,000, she said evenly, transferred all into the new account under the company's name. Darren smiled. Helix will officially be ours. Logan will have no idea what happened. We also submit confirmation from Boulder Credit Union, Karen continued, raising a folder. This document verifies that the signature on the mortgage loan does not match Mr. Maddox's notarized sample. Additionally, the IP address from which the electronic request was submitted does not match any device used by Mr. Maddox in the last 3 years. The judge nodded. The bank representative, Mr. Monroe, director of credit, was called to speak. After comparing the data, he said, we confirm that the loan file shows signs of signature forgery. The electronic verification code came from a device not listed in Mr. Maddox's customer record. The loan has been frozen, and we are cooperating with investigators. Darren shifted, jaw tight, glancing at his lawyer. His lawyer whispered something, but Darren shook his head. Emily was different. She said nothing. But I saw her shoulders sag, her eyes no longer darting. Her hands gripped the edge of her skirt, trembling. Karen did not stop. One more element, Your Honor. The entire security camera system in the residence at 87 Boulder was synced to a private server. No network connection, no remote interference possible. Maddox installed it 2 years ago with an encrypted password known only to him and one witness. She played the third clip. Emily entering my office, opening the bottom drawer, taking out the engraved pen reading Logan and Emily. Estes Park, 2009. She looked at it, turned it in her hand, then dropped it into the trash without a blink. Karen shut off the screen. We recovered this physical item, still bearing the same scratch shown in the video, matching exactly. This is physical evidence of intent to erase all traces linked to Mr. Maddox. The room was silent. Darren stood abruptly. I do not need to hear any more of this nonsense. He turned and left. The door clicked, then closed. No one stopped him. No one called after him. Emily stayed seated, her eyes fixed on the floor, empty. Karen placed a USB on the witness table. The data here has been backed up in 3 copies, encrypted, and sent to the prosecutor's office, the bank, and the financial crimes unit. All timestamps, locations, and devices have been forensically verified. Emily looked up then. Her eyes met mine for a single moment. I said nothing. I only looked back. No hatred, no pity, just an ending. Judge Lynn set the file down. The court recognizes the evidence as sufficient to transfer the case to the Colorado Financial Crimes Unit. The property division hearing is suspended indefinitely. Criminal investigation will take precedence. She looked at Emily. Mrs. Maddox, you have the right to remain silent. The court advises you to cooperate fully with your counsel. Emily nodded faintly, as if barely hearing. Karen packed the documents. I stood. No words to anyone, no glance back. Walking out, I passed where Emily sat. She did not lift her head. Her back hunched like someone much older. Her hands clenched around her bag, no longer able to make a single defensive gesture. I walked straight to my car. Inside my coat pocket, the metal pen engraved with our names was still there, untouched. Time did not move faster, nor did it slow down. It only became quieter, as if everything that needed to be heard had already been spoken through the evidence. Emily was removed from her job teaching art at the local high school. An anonymous email sent to the school board, along with video footage and legal documents from the investigation, ensured that no one wanted their name tied to hers again. Every defense she tried to make sounded absurd. Darren was not so fortunate. Helix Digital Solutions had all of its accounts frozen just 2 weeks after he walked out of the hearing. The state's Financial Investigation Office opened a criminal case into fraudulent loans and the misuse of collateralized assets. Half of his partners pulled their investments, and the other half vanished as if they had never known him at all. The house at 87 Boulder Street, the one where I had planted a maple tree that summer, was seized for asset liquidation. The mortgage had gone unpaid, and its value had plummeted under the weight of scandal. No one wanted to buy it. I did not go back. I did not stand in front of the fence I had once painted with my own hands. I did not reclaim the leather chair or the rug Emily and I had picked out together one weekend in Denver. I only did one thing. I opened the contacts list in my phone. I found the entry that read Logan Maddox, primary, and changed it to Logan, free. No address, no notes. Just free. Free of ties. Free of anything that had once broken my wings. I moved into my foster mother's old cabin in Aspen, the place that had always been my stopover for short stays, the place that never asked when I was leaving or why I hadn't called. The cabin was small, just 1 floor, with an old kitchen and a wooden porch facing the Pine Ridge. In the wooden cupboard sat a set of chipped porcelain cups I had never replaced. On the bookshelf was a worn notebook, its cover faded, a pen with dried ink resting between the pages. I brought only 3 things with me: an external hard drive holding all the evidence from the case, sealed and labeled closed, a metal pen engraved with Logan and Emily, Estes Park, 2009, and the wax canvas jacket I had worn the first day I returned to the United States, still unwashed. In the mornings, I rose before sunrise. I brewed black coffee in a glass pot and sat on the porch steps, watching the sun climb over the ridge. The wind hissed against the roof. The wooden floorboards creaked under my feet. Everything was real. No false voices, no cold messages, no 3-line divorce papers. Only the scent of coffee, the resin of pine, and clarity. By afternoon, I worked behind the cabin, setting up a small training ground for fellow veterans I had once served with. I called it Red Ridge Ground, never after my own name. We shared survival skills, emergency response training, and most importantly, how to be silent at the right moments. There were 7 of us. Each carried wounds that did not show on the skin. We did not ask many questions. We simply passed around an old combat knife and taught one another how to light a fire in 10 below weather. One late autumn evening, I opened the drawer of my desk and took out the metal pen. It still bore the scratch, a thin mark from hitting a rock during a climb in the 2013. The engraving had faded by half, but if you looked closely, you could still make out the faint line, Logan and Emily, Estes Park. I took a piece of sandpaper and gently smoothed over the old engraving, not to erase it, but to refresh it. Then I sat down, knife in hand, and carved new words, slow and steady, still standing. 3 words, no embellishment, no hidden meaning, just a truth that could no longer be denied. I was still here. No more battlefields, no more faithless wife, no more house taken from me. Only me, a man who did not need fists for revenge, but only his existence. If you have walked with me this far, I think perhaps you too have carried a pain no one knows. Maybe you have never received a divorce email while snow was falling thick over Northern Europe. Maybe you have never seen your name forged on a mortgage loan. But I believe you have known that feeling. The feeling of being betrayed and still having to stay silent, because if you speak up, you are the troublemaker. And if you stay silent, you are the weak one. I have stood between those two choices. I understand the pull in the heart of someone who once loved so much they thought they could endure anything. But you know, Deshrei, there is something stronger than anger. It is control. It is the ability to see, to keep, and to wait for the right moment, to wait until there is nothing left to guess, only the truth that needs to be shown. During the 6 months in Tromsø, I had many sleepless nights, not because of the cold, but because I could not believe someone could plan betrayal so skillfully and still call it something adults should settle quietly. But when the shock passed, I learned one thing. Not everyone who betrays you is worth exhausting your anger over. Some people you simply need to bring into the light. The rest, let the light do its work. I did not call Emily. I did not beg. I did not demand answers. I did not go to knock on the door of the old house to reclaim each item I once bought. I just sat down, opened the camera, tracked the accounts, compared the signatures, and when everything was as clear as daylight, I presented it, without a single tear, without a single cruel word, because I knew. The truth does not need to shout, it only needs to be arranged clearly. You do not need to be a soldier or an intelligence officer to do that. You only need to hold yourself back just a little longer. You need to refuse the instant reaction, to give yourself enough time to see clearly the script being written around you. Save the email, record a call, keep the strange receipts, not to make a scene, but so that when the matter is pushed to the edge, you have data, not tears. I share this not to tell you to strike back. I do not believe in gloating. I believe in order, in a clear ending without shouting, in the way a person can stand again without becoming a copy of those who hurt them. If you have been in that place or are in it now, I hope you know, you are not walking alone. There are others who have been silent just like you, and they have walked through it, silent but not surrendered. Share this story if you know a friend or a loved one who is carrying something they cannot yet put into words. Maybe they are living with someone false. Maybe they are being controlled in a marriage that is no longer real. Maybe they are slowly disappearing from the very home they once built. Send this video to them or simply leave a comment and tell me where you are from. I do not need you to tell your whole story. I just need you to leave a trace that you are still here, still standing. And if you feel what I share has value, subscribe to the channel. Not for the algorithm, but because I believe stories like this need to be told again. Not loud, not with hatred, just true slices of life. Enough for someone on the edge of letting go to stand up again. I survived not because I was strong. I survived because I stopped trying to understand why they did it. And I began learning how to rebuild myself from the ruins they left. This story is mine. But if you are still reading now, maybe it is also a part of you. And if I had to gather it all into just one sentence, I would say, you do not need to shout to reclaim justice. You only need to be ready. I will be waiting to read your comment. It does not have to be long. Just let me know if you have ever or are now going through something similar. We do not need to speak loudly to be heard. We only need not to be silent with ourselves. To you, them, the one choosing to stand with the truth. I see you, I understand you, and I am here with you.